Silo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. I'm going to ask you right off the bat, everybody who's going to be watching this show, and I'm going to mention it probably 50 times over the course of the next hour, please share this video, because if there's one thing that Joe and I hammer home on, okay, on a number of different levels, is school choice for, especially in the inner cities for two reasons. Number one, you need educated people, okay? And the public school systems, because they're run by the teachers' unions, are not fulfilling their mission of educating children. That's number one. And number two, we want to talk about how everybody's racist. If you disagree with the left, you know you're a racist, right? Joe and I are racist. We're all racist if you disagree with the left. One of the greatest examples of systematic racism in America is the public education system. And that's a conversation that we're going to start off with tonight, okay? Because the success of the charter schools, obviously the success of parochial schools, like I know this bothers the left, Catholic schools, all right? The call for vouchers, okay, and more school choice, which is going to help particularly African Americans. That's a conversation where all of us good people need to go on the offensive. They cannot defend the current system, education system, the way it is, and we need to force them to change things for the better. And that's a great conversation that we're going to have. Also, speaking of systematic racism, Joy Behar, I'm sorry, that woman's just, I don't want to call her names. We're Catholic men. I don't want to call her names. She's just flat out doesn't know what she's talking about. And she wants to lecture Tim Scott. So we're going to get on that. And by the way, the atrocious behavior of the Twitter people when it comes to Tim Scott. You want to talk about, Joe, blatant racism, the way they attacked him, and what did he do? And they got away with it, okay? They got away with it, and that's uncalled for. You hear they call them flat out disgusting things, and he's a black man, and all those people are never called out for their racism. So we're going to talk about that. Tommy Tuberville, okay? Here's a guy has a very simple message to rookie athletes, okay, that are coming. Zip it. Shut up. But yeah, what about social? Beat it, okay? So Tommy Tuberville is telling these young athletes, what? Actually, he's not even saying watch your mouth. He's saying shut your mouth, okay? So we're definitely going to talk about that. And I'll tell you one thing, we try to come up with solutions, and a lot of the times those solutions counter the left-wing narrative, and because of that, we're called racism. There's blatant racism, particularly in the farming system in the United States, okay? And we're going to talk about that, where it really does come down to, if your skin happens to be white, okay, don't apply for loans, because you ain't getting one. And that's racism.
It's funny because my buddy has a small business in LA, and he ran into that too. He's not even in farming. He couldn't apply to certain loans because him and his wife are white.
Right. But let me ask you something. Doesn't that go against the narrative that we're not supposed to judge people by the color of their skin?
This isn't like racism to me. I mean, you're picking winners and losers. And this is basically, well, we'll get to that.
Yeah, and we're going to have a great conversation. We encourage you all to in the chat room. There's a bunch of people in there now. Colin, Tom, Gugliotta, we love you, Tom. We love you all. D. Cox, Larry, Colin from Ireland. We have an international audience. Colin's a loyal listener to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. So we expect to have a good crowd tonight as the conversation moves forward. So let's get into it, because to me, and I'm going to hand it over to Joe one more time. Joe and I are now on the offensive. We don't defend our positions because our positions don't need defending, because they're truthful positions. We have to force them to defend their positions. School choice is at the top of that list.
Bill Donahue of the Catholic League says school choice promotes social justice. Interesting. Social justice. That seems like one of the big narratives of the left, and they seem to be ignoring this. Why? Because the union owns them, and they need their votes, and they placate to that voting base. It's sad, and the children suffer. So let's break it down. The state legislature in Florida has voted to expand its existing school choice vouchers program, making them available for more families. I want to give you a couple examples to get an idea of how successful this has been. Already one of the most ambitious voucher programs in the country, we're talking about Florida. Last academic year, the state offered more than 36,000 students an average of $7,000.
Repeat that, Joe.
$7,000 per student.
36,000 students.
One of the best elements of this legislation is that it would offer Florida students already enrolled in Catholic or charter schools eligibility for these vouchers.
Now, see, that's important because if you're, let's say, for argument's sake, you don't have to be Catholic to send your kid to a Catholic school, but let's say you're Catholic parents and you have a sophomore, okay, in the Catholic school. You know, prior to this, that person's excluded. They're already in school, and they say, well, no, they're still in school. They're still paying tuition. They still have their junior and senior year left. No, they're eligible too.
Now we're going to talk Indiana. Indiana, too, has recently expanded its decade-old voucher program. Indiana will now offer vouchers to 48,000 students.
48,000 students.
I mean, ultimately, this is the deal. I mean, you should have a choice. And frankly, some people don't have a choice because they live in a poor neighborhood. Everyone should have, in this country, equal opportunity for an education, and they simply don't. They simply don't. And vouchers give people a chance to get that education. And frankly, the Democratic Party is against it. I know why, because the union is strong. And I don't know why they're not called on it. Trump tried with DeVos, and she was vilified.
Yeah.
I don't know why people, frankly, who live in these school systems vote for people who are not for this, because some of these schools, frankly, don't work. And frankly, also pouring money into these schools because they're corrupt, like take like Newark Public School, like currently.
Perfect example.
I wouldn't give them a cent.
Not a dime.
Burning the money. I mean, like
no, it really is like throwing the money into the sewer.
3 out of 10 people graduate.
There's no reason for it. But remember, this is about what we're told is it's about social justice. All the SJWs, all the social justice warriors, they all got their fists in the air. All right, here's the reality of the situation. As you always mention, the rich are going to be able to send their kids wherever they want. Why? Because they have the money. Okay, they have the money. The only solution these SJWs come up with is, well, let's tack this in the case of, let's say, Newark. Let's keep it with that. That's an inner city, and it's a decrepit city. Okay, so it's the poster child of a city that has been run into the ground by the left. Okay, their idea of justice, which if you want to, let's say, go along the lines of what rich people do, where they have choices because of the income that they make. Well, why are you so afraid to give these people choices? Your only solution to answer the social justice problem is to take that money, and as you said, Joe Resinello, take it and dump it in the sewer and keep giving it to the corrupt public school, the school teachers unions, okay, who are only going to take that money and graft off the top, and the kids are still going to graduate at 3% or 30% or less.
One of the saddest, if you ask me,
absolutely,
one of the saddest predicaments in America. I would say after abortion, killing our children, we don't educate the poor. Donald Trump was spot on this issue. Spot on this issue. Our public school system in inner cities, you have no chance. And here's another problem. A lot of these kids come from broken homes. You have a broken home and you have a bad school. You have zero chance of making it in this country. If you have those two things going for you, the likelihood that you're getting out of your situation is next to zero.
That's true. You have to be a gifted. You have to be gifted.
And also,
in which case you get to go wherever.
Yes. Because you could be still gifted and still fall into bad situations in places like Baltimore, Newark, Memphis,
Detroit,
St. Louis, Detroit. How are you coming out of that? It's one of the worst situations, and frankly, it's an embarrassment. And throwing money at it doesn't work.
No, we've done that for years.
Oh, please. It doesn't work.
Since we were kids, Joe, trillions and trillions of dollars have gone from the federal government to many of these decrepit school systems. That's a fact. Trillions of dollars. The money doesn't equalize anything because you get so much money, particularly in the state of New Jersey, let's say. How do you, now again, this is where Joe and I go on the offensive because we know our position's correct. How do you justify spending, in the case of Newark, New Jersey, $28,000 to send the kid to Central High School? 28 grand, which is double even the highest tuition, let's say Catholic school. in Essex County? Let's say Seton Hall Prep or St. Benedict's.
It's considerable. It's probably like $10,000 more.
Okay.
At least.
You say it's money, but you spend $28,000 and say to send that kid to Central High School where 3 out of 10 kids are graduating and about 1 out of 10 kids is actually going on to college, maybe even less. Okay. And you're justifying not, let's say, giving that mother and father a voucher for, let's say, half the money, 14 grand, to send the kid to St. Benedict's that graduates 100% of their students and 99% of the students go on to college. That is not, Joe Resinello, my point in illustrating it like that. That is not a defensible position. We have to force them to defend spending $28,000 of taxpayer money and sending that, consigning that kid to Central High School and Week Wake and East Side and West Side and the rest of them, okay? Because all those schools suck. And it doesn't have to do with the parents. It doesn't have to do with the students. It has to do with the unions, and it has to do with the fact that they want everything and they want to produce nothing, and they want to take away choice. And that is where we are going to put on our social justice hats and say, that's not social justice.
And I don't know why. I'll be honest with you. It's one of those issues. I don't know why our African-American brothers and sisters in the inner city vote for these people because of this issue alone. I mean, I have to rack my brains on it. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it's your kids. Don't you? I mean, either they're brainwashed. I don't know. But here's the thing. They have no chance of excelling in these schools. You have no chance. Mm-hmm. When 3 out of 10 kids are graduating a high school, something's wrong because they're not dumb. It has nothing to do with that. What makes them any different than any other kid? It's the fact it doesn't work.
Right.
The system doesn't work.
And you could beg for as much money as you want unless you change the paradigm. What do they call it in business? Paradigm shift. You got to change the paradigm. Unless you change the paradigm. But that means they have to challenge. They're going to have to question their liberal assumptions. You know what I mean? They're John Dewey, who basically was the guy who laid out the blueprint for the left to take over public education 100 years ago. They need to challenge that paradigm. They're not willing to do it. Why? Because if you're going to learn anything, if you're one of those 3 out of 10 kids who actually learns anything, okay, you're going to learn what they want you to learn. In which case, that kid's not learning; they're being indoctrinated, and the other 7 kids fall through the cracks, and they don't care.
But it's also, it's also about the pensions for the teachers.
Of course.
I mean, giving money back to families means the money doesn't stay in the coffers. And states like New Jersey are barely making it as it is. They're never giving any money back, ever, because they can barely make it. They can't make their bills anyway. People are fleeing the state left and right. So, I mean, like, it's sad.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the victims here are the kids. The kids are the ones that get suffered. They always say it's about the kids. Whenever I hear that, I want to vomit. I've been hearing that, and I've been saying this way before this show. It's the biggest racket going. Why should kids in the suburbs have an upper hand on kids in the inner city who are minorities? That, to me, is the great one of next to abortion. We covered that last week as an example of systematic racism. This is the second greatest example of systematic racism. We talked about abortion last week. 85% of Planned Parenthood clinics are in walking distances from minority neighborhoods. Hello, is that a pattern? Is that a pattern? Why is 36% of African Americans aborted when they're only 13% of the population? Hello. There's no abortion clinics in my neighborhood.
Right.
Hello, you can't connect the dots. Why are you disadvantaging single Black moms in cities and sending their kids to schools where their likelihood of success is next to nil?
And at the same time, while they do that, which is bad enough, okay, that's bad enough, but then they blame everybody else who's critical of the system, and they say you're racist.
I want them to have an equal.
I want them the best education.
You should, and it's sad.
You know who else does? By the way, Eva Moskowitz. I'm sure there's not a lot I agree with Eva Moskowitz, okay? But Eva Moskowitz champions charter schools. And guess what? A kid in New York City that goes to, let's say, Success Academy, okay, or a school like that, they're getting a much better education than, let's say, the public schools. Some public schools might have started out okay. There may be some public schools that do okay, but The point of this conversation is the social justice warrior reaction to anybody who wants to challenge the public education establishment, because they are racist. And we don't throw that word around the way they do. We demonstrate how their policy is demonstrably racist, because the main people who are suffering, as Joe mentioned, are Black kids and Hispanic kids in the inner city. And the only thing they could think of is, A, we're gonna say we don't have enough money, which is a lie. And B, if you criticize us, you're a racist. You know, I watched On the Waterfront the other day.
Good movie.
I happened to be flicking through, right? I was just fooling around a little bit.
Where's
That
my hook?
all right? What's that?
Where's my hook?
Where's my hook? That's right, Marlon Brando. And Lee J. Cobb plays that great role as Johnny Friendly, right? And they're running the union, okay? And Johnny Friendly's getting kickbacks, and everybody gets a cushy job as long as you play the game. That was the 1950s, and there's no difference between that corrupt longshoremen's union and the current, and not just the current. This has been going on for decades, okay? The public school establishment and the union that controls it. There is no difference.
It's the largest union, which I looked up when we were doing this show. It's the largest union in America, the teachers union.
I believe
it's the largest union, so they carry a lot of weight. It's sad. And like I said, it's the kids that suffer ultimately, and it's the poor kids that suffer. This is such a shame. And frankly, I don't know why they get away with it. I don't know why people continue to vote for it. If you want to look at a good example of what we're talking about, after the show, Google, it's called The Rule. It's a documentary. You can see it. It's about an hour on St. Benedict's that pulls from the same population as the public schools do in Newark, New Jersey. It talks about how successful they are. And why I say for you to look at that, a lot of times people write these kids off and say that they're stupid. St. Benedict's Prep is the #1 rated boys soccer program in America. It comes from Newark, New Jersey. They also have a water polo team, a fencing team. These kids go to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford. They're pooling from Newark. The same kids that go to the public school system, they could be their neighbors, and they're successful and have been successful for a number of years.
Decades.
And it's cheaper per student to go to St. Benedict's than it is that the state is paying for these kids to go to a school where 3 out of 10 graduate high school.
By far.
So look at it. It will back up what we're talking about. And it just goes to show you the shame of it. The shame of it. Everyone's talking about lifting people out of poverty. This is racist. That's racist. Well, I'm pointing one out for you.
That's right. Bill Donahue, Joe, he said it. While some may debate what is the best way to achieve, talking about helping the poor, okay, what's the best, one of the best ways, everybody's looking for a solution, okay, in order to alleviate poverty, at least to the best you could, all right, and raise people out of poverty. Bill Donahue said, while some may debate what's the best way to achieve this, evidence, see, Bill Donahue's a sociologist, evidence suggests that providing children with quality education remains one of the greatest determinants of socioeconomic status. What does he mean by that? Let's look at it this way. Let's say at St. Benedict's, let's say you're the 1% that doesn't go to college. Dude, you're equipped for life.
Oh, heck yeah.
You will succeed in the world, even if you don't go to college. By your sophomore year at St. Benedict's, even if you don't intend to go to college, you're more equipped for the world than the senior graduating and the freshmen in some of these colleges are. You could get out in the world and you will do well. Like you said, there's the discipline. You've learned how to work because let's face it, Benedictines, they're all about work, okay? Because St. Benedict was about work. So you are disciplined. You've gotten a rigorous education. Can't use that word anymore, by the way, in modern conversations when it comes to education. If you use the word rigorous, which implies you actually have to work hard if you're a student, that's out the window. But the model is such that even if you don't go to college, you will make it in life. If you go to St. Benedict's, I will say if you go to Seton Hall Prep, and I'm going to use two examples. Okay, Seton Hall Prep and St. Benedict's, okay? And Joe and I are no slouches. We're not. Joe went to QP. I went to Seton Hall Prep, okay? But I will tell you this. We grew up working class, not middle class. Let's be clear. Working class Americans in Newark, New Jersey, okay? Working class. My uncle sent my cousin to St. Benedict's. who graduated and went to Yale. My father, okay, worked, and my mother worked and sacrificed, sent my brother to Seton Hall Prep. My brother went to Yale. Now, both very smart guys, don't get me wrong, okay? But nonetheless, the bottom line is it wasn't rich people. My uncle and my father were not rich sending their kids to St. Benedict to Seton Hall Prep. They sacrificed, they sent them there, and the education coming out of high school was top notch. Top notch. I consider myself to be a fairly intelligent guy, and you too. Joe graduated Catholic high school, so did I. We were not consigned to Barringer, okay, or Central High School, or East Side High School, or Harrison High School, or Kearney High School, or any of these high schools, okay? We weren't consigned to them. Our parents sacrificed. We went to private school. Well, you know what? These people, especially a lot of them are single moms in the inner city.
They can't do
Give them a break, man. Give them a break. You're spending $28,000 anyway to send their kid to a decrepit school. Cut them a check for 14 grand. Save the taxpayers 14 grand and let her send their kid to St. Benedict. You will be doing that woman and her child a much better service. A much better service.
And let's be clear, they don't do it because it benefits them and not the kids. Because the benefit is what he just said. It's as clear as day. And the kids are not benefiting from the current model, yet they continue to do it because it's about the teachers union.
Right. And Tom's right. It's because we let them get away with it, Tom. Tom, I don't know what state you're in. Obviously, you know where. Oh, Tom's in Texas. Okay, Texas, I'm sure is a little bit better. Sure is probably a lot better. The bottom line is this: in a state like New Jersey, the fact is that the teachers unions and pretty much I would say all the public sector unions in New Jersey, they control the politics in New Jersey. So you get like I know this firsthand. Like you get firemen and cops who are as conservative as Joe and I, who will vote for Phil Murphy because they're in the unions, because it's in their financial interest to do so. And they're like, well, screw it. My livelihood depends on it. That's the system that needs to change because there are victims. And bottom line is this, also in the middle of the whole thing, okay, is again, we're called the racists when these people and their actions show that they don't give a damn about these young black kids. As Joe always says, they care about the money. Well, don't preach to me that I'm a racist when you won't lift a finger that you know you can, by the way. Eva Moskowitz in New York City, those charter schools are successful, Joe. They're successful models for education. We know that that kid that you're about to send to Central and you send them to a charter school or a Catholic school is already got a leg up and they refuse to do it for money. Well, then you're the racist. Stop calling everybody else racist because we want to help that mom and the kid and you want to do neither.
And the Democrats who are making those decisions, their kids don't go to those schools.
No.
You see, that's another hysterical part about it all. They're going to either very, very, very fancy private schools or they go to a public school in a fantastic school district whereby the taxes are off the charts. So it's absolutely an incredibly unjust. It's been going on for decades. I've been saying this forever and a day. It's ignored. It continues to go on, and it's sad, especially in this country. You want people to get out of poverty? This is something you have to address. Donald Trump tried to address it with Betty DeVos. They fought her as if she was slaying children with a frigging flamethrower.
Right. It's like she was Satan.
I mean, because again, it's the teachers union. They're protecting their own ass. They're protecting their own coffers. Who gets killed in the process? The kids.
That's right. And most of whom, let's face it,
poor and black.
That's right. And you know what? The more we're able to get this message out there across social media. That's why I say share this video, okay? Get it out there. These teachers unions need to have their power taken away. I would go so far as to say that teachers unions should be declared by a court, hopefully the Supreme Court, an inherent conflict of interest. Let's break that down for a second, if you don't mind, okay? One party, the state, basically takes care of another party, the teachers unions, okay? Neither of which are using their own money. They take your money and they give it to the teachers unions. The teachers unions fill their pockets and they give a kickback. Remember, I mentioned on the waterfront, they give a kickback to the Democrat politician
by a vote
for their campaign because they're buying votes. Okay. So there's an inherent conflict of interest because neither one of them are using their own money. They're using ours and they have the game rigged. They take the taxes, they give it to the teachers unions. The teachers unions take a percentage of that, give it to the politician, and then it's just a vicious cycle that keeps going over. A judge has to break that. You have to have the stones to get up in front of judges and start arguing the case that this is a conflict of interest. And in this country, when there's a conflict of interest, you know what happens? The kibosh is put on it. These unions have to go. We don't need them. We never needed them. We quite frankly don't even need a public education system. We do not. There is no written law that says, or etched in stone that says, we need a public education system. We need to start saying it. Why? Because again, they've had control for 100 years and they've failed. They get an F.
Go to our next story. This is a good one. It's coming to us from the Daily Wire. The View co-host, Joe alluded to it at the beginning of the show. The View co-host, Joy Behar, stated that the Republican Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina does not seem to understand the difference between racism and systematic racism. Let's go to the quote from Behar. This is what she said. She said,
let me grab my stomach.
Oh, go ahead. Maybe it's not a racist country. Maybe Americans, the majority, are not racist. But we live in a country with systematic racism. You're right, Joy. We just pointed out a very good example of it. Who also called it, she also called it appalling that Scott did not acknowledge the existence of systematic racism in the United States during his speech. It's a good speech. You should check it out. This is the retort to Joe Biden's recent.
Did they even call that a State of the Union?
I don't even know what
it was. I heard it was an address to the joint.
Horrible, it's horrible rating.
I heard it was. I won't even watch it.
11 million people watched it, and to be honest with you, they showed historically other presidents, particularly Trump, at this point in their presidency, after their first 100 days, it was a third. And keep this in mind: he quote unquote had 81 million votes, the most ever. 100 days later, only 11 million people listened to his speech.
Right.
That says something to
Listen,
me.
I got
something to me.
If you believe that, I got a bridge in Brooklyn I want to sell you.
Well, let me give you just, with regard to, Ms. Behar's claim that he didn't acknowledge systematic racism. This is a little bit from what Tim Scott had to say. He said this: I know the pain of discrimination, having been pulled over for no reason and followed around the store. He also added, I've also experienced a different kind of intolerance. I got called Uncle Tom and the N-word by the progressives and the liberals. It is stunning that in 2021, that those who speak about ending discrimination want to end it more with more discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just tell you that it's been an amazing morning with so many good people calling me. But the left, they doubled down. They're not going to attack my policies, but they're literally attacking the color of my skin. You cannot step out of your lane, according to the liberal elite left. He did acknowledge systematic racism. He was saying that, listen, I'm a black man. I have walked through a store. People have followed me. I've been pulled over for no reason. I'll tell you a story for myself personally. One time, Tom, no offense, I was driving from Plano, Texas to Fort Worth, Texas. I'm a dark-skinned Italian man. In the summer, I get very dark, and at the time, I had a goatee. It's black. I got pulled over driving. No one's on the road by a cop in Texas on a motorcycle. I was there. I was an auditor at the time. I pulled over. Guy pulls me over, and I was driving 72 in a 65 on an afternoon, and no one is on the road. So he pulls me over. I look at him. I'm like, sir, what did I do? He's like, you're driving 72 and a 65. I was like, I felt like saying, whoop-de-effing do. What am I doing? What am I doing? I show him my New Jersey license. What are you doing here? I'm an auditor. I'm here for work. He hands it back to me immediately and says, okay, you're good. I get to the office. I say, why the heck did that happen? They were like, they probably thought you were Mexican. That's what the office said to me, swear. So there is people, listen, let's be real. I'm being honest. There are people who are racist in this country, and there are issues that we do have to address. There's no question about it. We just named two: abortion and the education system. However, Tim Scott's a fair man. I actually like him as a person. He's a good man. He actually put forth a very fair police reform bill. They voted against it. You know why? They liked the issue. He gave them a solution. They rather have the issue.
Right.
And it's the same thing with this crap. This guy is a fair guy. I actually think they're going to have problems with him because he poses a challenge to their narrative because he's a black man and he's a fair man. And he says common sense make for common ground. And it does, because everyone can relate to it. All I'm saying is this is unwarranted. To call him names. He's a fair guy. Like him or not, he's a fair guy.
Right.
And frankly, it's a disgrace.
It is. and the way black conservatives are treated in this country, liberals can say anything they want. Let's take a few examples. Okay, we talked about Ibram Kendi a bunch of times in critical race theory. If you use the words big government, you're a racist. If you use the words tax cut, you're a racist. Okay, if you use the word socialism, you're a racist. Now, these are things that we rail against from a policy perspective and from our worldview. We're against socialism. We want the government to do less, so we want tax cuts. But if you say these things, you're a racist and you represent systematic racism. These people attack Tim Scott. They call him the N-word. Trending the other day on Twitter was Uncle Tim. And we're the racist. And I'm sorry, that incenses me beyond belief. Because we want to have a discussion about things. But their immediate fallback position is you're racist if you disagree with us as leftists. Not as black people, as leftists. Like people like Joy Behar, who's not black. Okay? And that disgraziad self-identified Catholic, Sonny Hostin. All right? My wife can't stand her. My wife, she's the other host on The View.
I don't know what that make me.
Another self-identified Catholic, all pro-abortion and everything else, blah, blah, blah. She's another disgraziad. They see race and skin color first and foremost, yet they say that they always come across in sanctimonious tones and platitudes, and we're such good people because we're enlightened. And they kind of go like this, Joe Resinello, because they're enlightened people, not like those racists out there who actually want to do something about big government. This is what we're dealing with. That's why I say no longer defense. You have to go on the offense. You need to answer, Joy Behar, how you judged Tim Scott by the color of his skin. That's what you did. She accused Republicans of doing that. No. He's a rising star in the Republican Party. That's why they put him up there. You're the one who pointed out the color of his skin. You think you might need to check your own racism, Joy, and all your liberal buddies? Because that's what they need. They need the mirror put up to them, Joe Resinello. Well, that's what they need.
Well, that's why I think he's dangerous to them. They're going to try to destroy him because he's a black man, frankly, and he speaks. I actually think he's fair. He's actually not like.
I don't think he's a knee-jerk type of guy.
Not at all. Yeah, he's very level-headed. What I mean Republicans could be nuts too.
Sure.
He's not. I actually think he's very fair and balanced. And take the police reform bill. I thought that was pretty fair. And they didn't want his answer. Why? Because they want the issue. They want the issue. The issue is useful to them. The solutions, frankly, isn't, unless it's coming from them. You see, that's the sad part about tribe. It's like tribal politics. It's actually sad. It just works against the whole idea of America. And that's a great example of it.
Yeah. Karen's in the chat room. We just want to say hi to Karen. Haven't seen her before. She said, thanks for speaking the truth from Indiana. We got you, Karen. We got you covered. You're at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. And we're way, way, way in the breach. Sunday nights, 8 o'clock, going across a number of different platforms. And yeah, that's one of the things that we need to start focusing on. When they say racism, say, so what? Answer my question. That's all. That's all. Show them that it does not work. That to call someone a racist, until the laws are changed somehow, libel laws, defamation of character laws, that's going to be a little bit of
has to happen.
That has to happen. That's a tall order. And at some point in the future, it's not going to behoove you, okay, if you're a liberal, to call somebody in a baseless way a racist, because you'll get sued for defamation of character and it'll cost you money. And maybe then you'll shut your mouth, okay? But until then, call them out on the actual racism. And call them out on their fictitious racism and use the numbers to back you up. So remember, on the one hand, you could talk about, let's say, individual prejudice cops, whatever the case might be, but you could demonstrate statistically, no, the cops are not racist. All right, overall. No, but when you want to consign kids in the inner city to these corrupt schools and you don't care about them, their parents, or whatever the case may be, well, quite frankly, you're acting like a little bit of a racist, and we're going to call you out on it. Same with abortion and same with Planned Parenthood. If there's a liquor store on every corner in a black neighborhood, well, guess what? They're right in bed with Planned Parenthood because one of their so-called clinics is on every corner in a black neighborhood too. Again, demonstrably racist. And we need to call them out, Joe Resinello. We need to call them out.
Dylan Gwynn brings us this one. He talks about Tommy Tuberville. He was the former Auburn coach. And he has some advice for NFL rookies when it comes to talking politics. This is what he says: don't do it. Tuberville made it clear that activist athletes are sometimes basically we need less of them. And he's 100% right. And he knows because, listen, he coached Auburn. It's a major program. Now he's a state senator. Well, he's actually, I think
he's a U.S. senator.
U.S. senator, Alabama. This is what he had to say. Nobody's looking for an outspoken person, is the advice Tuberville says that people should give to his players and people going into the draft. They're too divided as it is, meaning the country. I'd just like to see our country be more settled down in terms of people getting into politics. Now the left kind of attacked him because he's now a senator. But basically his message is this: listen, when I was a football coach, I didn't talk politics. Now I'm a politician. I think that's advice that a lot of these athletes should take. Frankly, a lot of them aren't qualified to make some of their statements. I think we've seen that with LeBron James. Frankly, a lot of his statements, particularly the last one that he made with regard to that Ohio situation with that the shooting with that girl, she was going to stab somebody. It was completely off. I mean, and it's you're not helping anybody there, LeBron. I mean, like, really, honest to goodness, and stick to your lane. Your lane is basketball. Make your money. Like, and frankly, this is another thing I just don't understand why these leagues are embracing these ideas. Stick to your lane. You're basically offending, in many respects, your clients, i.e., America.
That's why I don't understand why.
And I don't know why they do it.
The organizations, I don't know why they go for it when they know, look, if I'm a businessman, I want 100% of that business. I don't want to alienate half my customer base.
Absolutely.
I'm in business. Just do business. How's that? And these guys coming in, let's be clear, they're employees. Why are we losing sight of that? LeBron James is an employee. If the owner of his team says, LeBron, shut your mouth when you're on the court, whatever you do off the court, okay? Whatever you do off the court, go ahead. We can't tell you what to do. But on the court, okay, and in this setting, same with Colin Kaepernick and the same with the rest of the woke athletes, shut your mouth. You represent our organization, and we don't want to piss off anybody because we want everybody to watch basketball. We want Joe and Joe to watch the New York Jets again because we both boycotted the New York Jets last year and did not watch them. That's what a businessman does. See, my boss, if I go to work and I say something to a guest, okay, and cheese them off, regardless if I'm saying it from a Republican or a Democrat point of view, you know what happens to me, Joe? Fired.
Oh,
fired.
Well, here's another thing, and it's clearly biased. Why we'll flip the coin. Why can't I voice my political opinions at work and you can? You can. You could talk about all your woke craziness all you want. Chemically castrating a child in grammar school.
Right.
Why can't I say I'm pro-life?
Right.
I'm now a hater of women. I mean, like, it's very sad that we've come to this point in America. You cannot have a healthy conversation with people anymore. You simply can't. And in certain segments of the society, if you bring up very, very, like, if you ask me, like honest and like you're sincere, like with regard to the conversation, you're not trying to be hateful or like, you could say, well, I did vote for Donald Trump. Why? Well, he helped me with regard to, say, my taxes. He helped me with regard to lowering the corporate rate, which kept my job. Well, I disagree with that. Okay, let's talk about it. You can't even do that anymore.
No,
you can't even do that.
Civil discourse is gone.
You can't.
In America. You can't argue these points. So now what does it come down to? Political will. Unfortunately, all of us probably belong to the Republican Party who lack political will to do anything. We elect them. We're going to elect them in 2022. You know that, right? The Republicans are going to take the House, and they're going to have a majority in the Senate. The question is, are they going to do anything? See, the left is good at winning, and they're terrible at governing. Okay, because they just don't know when to stop. Like you say, they always just overplay their hand. The Republicans are great at winning and then just giving that victory right back and giving it to them. I'll give you a perfect example. The Tea Party in 2010 swept in the midterms, Barack Obama's first term, okay, swept in Republicans to the House and Senate with the express intention of repealing Obamacare. And Republicans didn't do it. You explain to me how these guys expect us to vote for them when something as simple as that, when 70% of the country did not want Obamacare, and they went there and they failed at that. And then they expect us to keep voting for them. So it comes down to political will. The left does not want to have a debate. All right, real quick, Joe. There's a couple of people in the chat room I just wanted to acknowledge. Tom says Republicans buy sneakers too. Jordan said that. Yeah, and you know what? He was spot on. Republicans buy sneakers too, even though we shouldn't really buy sneakers from Nike because they use slave labor in Asia. Was that racist for me to say it like that?
Probably.
Yeah, but Nike's woke, so okay. I do want to just say from the bottom of my heart, very nice compliments. Sarath is in the chat room, said, why doesn't this show have thousands of views? Something's very off with this evil platform. Quite frankly, Sarath, I've been saying that for a while, not because Joe and I are the bee's knees, okay, but not for nothing. We have a lot. I have a lot of friends on Facebook. I got 3,000 friends on Facebook, and a lot of which came from Frontline with Joe and Joe. Okay, and we have now we have about 3,300 people who, let's say, subscribe on Facebook. We have 1,000 at the Frontline with Joe and Joe on YouTube. We just passed 1,000, and Frontline Media, Frontline TV, has 49,000. And yet, for some reason, our reach right now is 71 people in the chat room. As you said, Sarah, something's off there. But Joe and I are not complaining. You want to know why? Because before each show, we pray to Our Lady, and we pray for success and guidance, and that we're doing things that are good and true here on this show. God will do what he wants with the show. And wherever it goes, you know, for his greater glory. Our job, Joe and me, stay here every Sunday, speak the truth, expose these lies out there, and watch the left squirm more than anything else. So thank you so much, Sarah, for the compliment. We really appreciate that. So yeah, and here's one other thing I wanted to ask you about. Joe and I have said on this show a million times, okay, I'm in the hospitality industry. Joe is in banking. We're regular guys. We do not shy away from a challenge. If you want to challenge us, you're more than welcome to. We're not running. We're not afraid of having a friendly conversation, maybe even not so friendly conversation, but we're not afraid to debate and to have a conversation. Okay. So we like to think that, yes, we offer our worldview. We offer our analysis of a lot of things that are going out there in the politics and the culture and all that, but we're not afraid of debate. We don't hide from anybody. Okay. Why is it that these Hollywood types, the athletes, when we're talking about athletes, LeBron James is a perfect example. Number one, there's two things that bother me. Let's stick with debate. They will not debate anybody. LeBron James is not debating anybody. You know that, right? He's going to stay safe on Twitter, Joe Resinello. He's just going to tweet out, okay? That's all he's going to do. And the other thing is this. You're afraid to debate, but then you want to think that you want all of us to think that you have more insight into life than we do. Now, I might think that you do if you were willing to actually have a conversation, but all you do is drop bombs and then you leave. You're a coward. He posted that the picture of that cop, right? Didn't he?
Yeah, but he took. In fairness, he did take it down
after it went.
But he shouldn't.
Thank you, Saraf. Thank you. Saraf just put in 20 Canadian, and we really appreciate it. But really.
Listen, you know, anyone can make a mistake, but you know, here's the deal. I mean, you carry a lot of weight, and it wasn't fair. I mean, there's a lot of things that are athletes. Stick to your lane. Make your money. You have a small window of time to make money, by the way, and you're never going to make that money again. Make your money, play your sport. If you want to do that on your own time, do it on your own time, frankly. But also keep in mind, you know, do it respectfully and use your head, because as I remember, like people said, I think it was Charles Barkley, he said, like, I'm not a role model, but you are a role model. People look to you. And you got to watch what you say. I mean, we have to watch what we say, to be truthful with you. We have got to make sure that what we say is accurate, and we have to say it respectfully. And frankly, we should say it even with love. And we try, and we don't always succeed. But at the same time, I think that there should be a better segregation. I think the league should draw the line a little bit more. They could do that they employ these men. Just basically say, like, just say, listen, guys, you can't, no more. That's the end.
The workplace, for your social justice warrior stuff, we're not going to judge it, but not in the workplace. And we're taking Black Lives Matter off the court, okay? And we're not going to allow you to do it in the workplace. Do whatever you want outside the workplace. In the workplace, you will follow the rules. And outside the workplace, okay, you will not associate yourself. Now, again, that might be a little tricky because they're in the public eye, but at least they could say to them, and there's certain things you can't do on the outside either. Like with this show, I don't, I watch my mouth at work, okay? And I only have very selective conversations with people who I absolutely trust. And on here, I don't say who I work for. Nobody knows who. No one's business. And it's the same thing. LeBron, everybody knows who he plays for and everything else. But in the meantime, what you say and the positions you take outside of work do not associate with the team. Do not associate with the organization, and then knock yourself out. But while you're here, you will stand for the national anthem, like it or not, okay? You will stand for the national anthem, and you're here to play basketball, all right? Whatever you do outside of that, we don't care. That's the position they should take. And you want to know what? Fans would respect it more. Fans would say, okay, let's say if you're a Knicks fan and you don't like what the Knicks have done, if they made a statement like that, say, okay, I'll go back to watching the Knicks. They're trying to clear out the workplace of this nonsense, so I can go back to doing what I want, which is watching basketball. Pretty common sense, no, Joe Arsenault? Sure. Is that radical? Did I say anything radical? Joe can't say anything on his job. I can't say anything on my job.
And I don't. But this is my time. And frankly, we do live in America, right? I guess not, because now you can't say what you want anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have free speech anymore. It's a shame. It's a shame. And we gave that away.
That's right.
We gave it away.
Tom says, not trying to excuse LeBron here, but I also think these high-end athletes and celebrities are pressured to say something even when they don't want to. I think you're right, Tom. But here's one thing the celebrity has if they don't want to say anything, or the athlete. LeBron could turn around to anybody putting pressure on him and say, I'm LeBron James. I'm the best player in the NBA. So you will back the hell off. See, he's got a lot of leverage because he's a stud. Let's face it.
Oh, dude,
he can do anything he wants. So he's got the ability, Tom, to tell those who are putting pressure on him from the left, no. I'm here to play basketball and win games for the fans and for the team. That's what I'm here to do. All right. And I'm doing that. Later on, and another thing too, real quick, just to put a final point on it. When these guys get out of the league, they're so young, and most of them have a lot of money. You can't spend the rest of your life being a social justice warrior. You come out of the league 35 years old, let's say mid-30s, a lot of these guys.
I think you could do a lot better than just, to be honest, to use Twitter. Put your money. LeBron does give a lot of money away. He's done a lot of good things, actually.
No,
I think he's a decent guy if you come right down to it. I just don't agree with his politics. And frankly, I think sometimes he just speaks from the hip and doesn't think through what he should be saying, because frankly, I think this last comment really hurt not only him, but it hurt police officers, because there was nothing wrong with what happened there. They were protecting someone's life.
That cop saved the black girl's life.
No question about that. No question.
She would have had her life taken or been severely injured.
There is that was just sad, actually, all around. It was just a sad statement. It was a sad situation, and it was exploited. Again, they like the issue. They're not interested in the solution. Tim Scott provided a solution. They shot it down.
They shot it down. Lisa's in the chat room. She says some employers monitor the social media of their employees. That's got to come to an end, Lisa. That requires an act of the government to say to employers, you're not monitoring your employees' social media. That's none of their business. None of their business, okay? If I'm not bringing my politics, let's say for argument's sake, somebody's a straight up racist, okay? And I own a restaurant, okay? And they come into work, and I don't really know what they do outside of work. I don't really care. In other words, they come into my restaurant, and they work, okay? And they do a good job, and they're friendly with all the guests, black, white, Hispanic, and everybody. I don't really care what they do on social media. That's going on out there. Now, that same person brings that into my place, then I'm going to have a beef with them because, again, I'm the boss, and I could do that, all right? So they need to be pushed back on, Lisa, to these employers that want to, let's say for argument's sake, you go fill out a job application. And the first thing they do is they hand off your application to the office manager and say, here, go Google this guy and see who he is. Well, guess what? I wouldn't get a job. If somebody found out that, let's say, look for me on the front line with Joe and Joe, I might not get hired. Okay? That's not right. You cannot do that to people. So you're absolutely right, Lisa, but that requires an act of the government. That takes a Josh Hawley, a Ted Cruz. It could happen. Tell employers, not doing this anymore. Not doing this. You're not going to infringe on the rights of your employees, period, exclamation point, Let's move on. You're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. We are way in the breach. Not as angry as I thought I'd be tonight. I'll be honest with you. Because a lot of, especially Joe, especially when Joy Behar's name comes up, that really kind of like, you know, it does. I love that. See, it makes the vein pop out of my head. It makes Joe twitch. But we want to thank you, of course, all for always supporting us. We got more to talk about, but, you know, joining us here at the front line. We get here 8 o'clock Sunday night, making it happen because of you. Our show's growing. We're on the radio, Veritas Catholic Network. Download the mobile app, Veritas Catholic Network. They're in Fairfield County, Connecticut, Westchester, and Northern Long Island, soon to be in New York City, which would be great for them and great for Joe and Joe. Crusade Channel, the last live radio station standing, crusadechannel.com, my church's station. We're on Mondays. We have our radio show there. That's a free trial, 30-day subscription. We think we will love the channel. Joe and I gain nothing from that financially. We just love the channel, and we support my church. So we're growing, and eventually we're going to be growing a lot more. All right. And it's because of you, and it's because of your prayers. And we really, really, really appreciate that. Having said that, let's move on.
Blaze brings us this gem. The left melts down over Caitlyn Jenner, our friend Bruce Jenner, his GOP candidacy. He's going to run for governor, if you have not heard, Bruce Jenner, as a Republican.
Oh, what state, Joe?
Oh, good old California. Let me break down basically the left's gripe here in just a sentence.
I just got to say this to you. There is nothing that warms our hearts more than when the left has to squirm. Because in the case of Bruce Jenner, and then I'm going to hand it right back over to Joe, okay? In the case of Bruce Jenner, they have to attack somebody who they tell us is unattackable. And they're going to have to savage Bruce Jenner, who at ESPN, you talk about woke sports, ESPN put up Bruce Jenner as the person of the year a couple of years ago, whatever it was. Bruce Jenner is a Trump Republican.
Thank you.
Donald, thank you, Colin, very much. Through 20 US in there. Thank you so much. Bruce Jenner is a Trump Republican. But Bruce is transgender. Bruce is dressing as a woman. How are they going to deal with this? Go ahead, Joe. I need to throw that out there because you're about to watch them not know what to do with Mr. Jenner.
Well, basically what they're saying is, Bruce, you're running as a Trump Republican and entering a world that hates you. This is what Glenn Beck had to say. That's basically, I mean, there's a lot of very horrible things, tweets that were said about him. I'm just paraphrasing it. Very horrible, actually, cursing and very, very horrible. This is what Glenn Beck had to say in response to all this. He says, yeah, see, but you just said the key words. If you really believe, they don't really believe anything. I don't think they even really believe that Republicans hate gay people. I don't think they actually believe that. That's just a slogan that's been drilled in their head. It doesn't have anything to do with race or gender or really anything else. It has everything to do with politics, and that's it. And that's true. That is true. They don't care about all this stuff. And, you know, you talk about a lot of these corporations, they're just jumping on the bandwagon, if you ask me, on a very superficial level, because this is the thing to do right now. Period. End of story, if you ask me. I mean, some of these things, it's so put your money where your mouth is. Send kids to school. Start spending some money. Like spare me all the talk. And it's just, to be honest with you, a lot of this stuff is just that. Like it, and Ted Cruz, we're going to cover this on the Crusade channel. Ted Cruz wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, and he's basically saying that all you're doing is giving lip service to these issues. And then when real issues come up, like we just talked about systemic racism in public schools, you don't talk about that.
Right.
Or a real issue coming up that 85% of Planned Parenthood clinics are within walking distance of minority neighborhoods. Nobody says a word.
Can I give you another real issue? This is a real issue, okay? And this is where Joe and I say Donald Trump failed, because Joe and I we live in the real world. We deal with the reality that is. And the reality is that Donald Trump was a vastly better president than Hillary Clinton would have been. Just straight up, okay? And successful. Donald Trump is very indifferent to the LGBT agenda. Very indifferent to it. He doesn't care, okay? Which means he's not their enemy. It's as Joe said and as Glenn Beck said. It's about politics. You see, the Republican Party is embracing a lot of the LGBT rage mob agenda, okay? And really like sticking it to let's say more religious conservatives. So Caitlyn Jenner is going to find a very welcome home in the Republican Party. Now, I'm not going to call her Kim Caitlyn, okay? So I hope to never meet Bruce because I'm going to call him Bruce. Because when I grew up, he was on the Wheaties box and his name was Bruce and he held the American flag. Now, he's still holding the American flag, only he's calling himself Caitlyn. My point is this. I'm not going to be hostile to Bruce Jenner, okay? But I'm not going to support what he wants. Now, if he wants to do what he wants to do and leave our kids out of it and not ram it down their throats in the public schools, that's something to talk about. But the Republican Party is embracing this. And they're not going to listen to Joe and Joe or all you guys out there. I'm probably still going to vote for a conservative Republican, but a lot of the conservative Republicans are not going to do anything about this. That's why I brought up Donald Trump. He's indifferent to this. Famous picture of him holding the rainbow flag. Okay? So you know what? What does this tell you all? It tells you what Joe and I have been saying for a very long time. Bruce Jenner is not transgender first, okay? He's not worthy of being protected because you're a Republican. The same way Andy Nago is not worthy of being protected from getting the crap beat out of him by Antifa because he's a conservative.
Nor is Clarence Thomas worthy of being protected. He's a black man because he's conservative and Catholic.
Who else did you know? Tim Scott.
Another black man.
Right. Because
they told them the N-word. They did. It's disgraceful. It's because it is about politics.
And again, this is where Joe and I come in. Call them out on it. You called Tim Scott the N-word. You called him Uncle Tim. I didn't call LeBron James that because that's not in my heart.
And he's a good man. Like his politics or not, and frankly, Tim Scott's not a
bad guy. He's a good guy.
Seriously, straight up and down. You don't have to like him politically. He's a decent guy, straight away. And that is a disgrace because it is about politics.
Mm-hmm.
It is about politics, and it's about power. I don't know how people don't see that. I really don't. How you don't see that.
I think they do if people like us and many people out there point it out because, again, the problem, underlying it all, a friendly media. The media lets them, the media will not challenge them. Like anybody who called Tim Scott the N-word or anybody who didn't condemn that action in the Democrat Party goes on MSNBC, they need to say, you didn't condemn that. Do you condemn that Twitter person for calling Tim Scott the N-word? And let them squirm. Because you know what? They won't condemn it. Just like Bernie Sanders never condemned the guy who shot Steve Scalise. He condemned the action. He never condemned the guy because that would be giving in too much. They're never going to condemn those people that call Tim Scott the most horrible names. Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, okay? All these black conservatives and intellectuals, Clarence Thomas, okay? I'm sure Burgess Owens is going to be on the chopping block soon too as a conservative black man, former New York Jet. Conservative black man, congressman from Utah. He's going to be on the chopping block too. Say anything you want about those guys and even go so far as to call them the one word that we're told you're never supposed to use. They could use it.
And you shouldn't use it.
You shouldn't.
Whether you're black or white. And yet they do with regard to Tim, and they get away with it. Sounds to me like you're using, as we covered, discrimination to fight discrimination.
Right. And it really is sad. I know there was a comment in here. No, you're right. I wanted to get to a comment that was in here. Well, I think I kind of lost it. But anyway, you know, the double standards are where they really need to be called out. Oh, Tom Gugliotta, Texas. He said, I heard, and this is a total digression, but it's something that was kind of relevant. So we'll just cover it for a minute. Tom, he said, I heard there are a group of U.S. bishops that are seeking to have Biden excommunicated. Have you guys heard anything about this? They're being more vocal, Bishop Norman, okay, Bishop Gomez, okay. We're not going to beat them up for what we consider to be a little late on this. They should have been more before the election. However, they are sending a message to Biden, in our opinion. They're sending a message saying, look, we're going to take this seriously. And you really shouldn't present yourself for Holy Communion. Now, what happens with it, we don't know. But they're forming a commission to ask these questions. They're being a little bit political. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And hopefully they'll do something or come out with a statement that's ultimately going to be good for Joe Biden's soul. Okay. But to answer your question, Tom, because you asked it, yes, they are being a little bit more vocal. In fact, I think a lot more vocal about it. So we'll see we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Joe, I mean, as far as it goes, I think it was Paula Ann said, yeah, this is what they do, or JC said, this is what they do. They're going to eat themselves. So Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner, going to become public enemy number one when he runs for governor of California. And it's going to be them that savage him. They're going to savage him. You watch. It's going to be disgusting, by the way. The double standards that they're going to use to go after him is going to be outright disgusting. But Bruce wanted to throw his hat in the ring. Let's see what happens.
Last story of the night is coming from Breck Dumas of The Blaze. He basically is talking about a group of white Midwestern farmers have filed a lawsuit against the Biden regime for racial discrimination over being banned from a loan forgiveness program offered only to farmers of color due to the fact that they are ineligible solely due to their race. The complaint argues that the loan program, as part of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 for socially disadvantaged farmers, is unconstitutional because it's race-based. One of the plaintiffs in the suit is Adam Faust. He's a dairy farmer and he's a double amputee. He told the Journal Sentinel this: there should be absolutely no federal dollars going anywhere just based on race. The economic impact from COVID-19 didn't hurt any race more than any other as far as agricultural situations go. And he's right. Mm-hmm. You're picking winners and losers. And some people will say, like what I've heard these arguments on like talk shows. They say you're saying your power is getting taken away from you. No, it has nothing about power. It's about picking winners and losers. Just like Adam Faust had to say here, COVID affected all people. Some businesses more than others, but in those businesses that got affected, they were black and white.
Right.
So why wouldn't you help both equally? Isn't that discrimination? I think it is. I think they have a case.
Well, that's why I say this is you got to be called out. You're judging these people based on the color of their skin. You're the racist. That's what you have to tell the left. You're telling white people who have white skin, who are farmers, well, you need not apply. Yeah, but I got hurt too. Am I an American citizen? Yeah, but you're white. That's racist. That's truly racist. Because first and foremost, your criteria is this color of a person's skin. I thought, according to the liberal woke crowd for years, I thought we were beyond this. You ever hear that line? I thought we were so beyond this. And it's just horrible. Okay. Yeah, but you're perpetrating it. And what's the kicker here, Joe? You don't remedy past discrimination with more discrimination. You said that in the first segment. You do not remedy past discrimination with more discrimination. You replace just injustice with a just system. And in a just system, giving everybody what they're due, because that's what justice is, okay, all of these farmers have been negatively affected. And in justice, they all should have access to whatever aid the federal government's offering, regardless of factors, particularly the color of your skin. And they need to be called out on it. That's just the bottom line. Oh, yeah, that's Barbara. Barbara's up in Wisconsin. So she says Journal Sentinel. That's Milwaukee's paper. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, that's what it is. But, you know, they have to turn around and hopefully, like, let's say, Joe and I say on the show all the time, lawsuits, they need to start getting filed for a variety of different things, a whole host of different things. We need to start filing lawsuits. In other words, against the media when they call people racist. Okay. Tim Scott, anybody who called him the N-word, he should file a lawsuit. I don't care if it goes anywhere or not. Start filing lawsuits against these people for defamation of character. In this case, this should be easy. This is blatant discrimination.
I don't even know, to be honest with you, I don't even know how you put this forth, like seriously.
How are they not caving into this guy? And there's a double amputee, by the way. How are they not saying, okay, look, see, this is what we mean about the left, where they have a lot more stones than the right does. You would think they're busted with this. You know, like here's a guy filing.
Cover it though. See, that's the problem.
Right.
That's the problem. Because if the Republicans were ever to do something like this, they know they're getting called out on it. The media is supposed to be. That's why you have a free media. That's why it's a gift. It's so abused. It's a propaganda machine for the government, de facto. I mean, sadly, even if a Republican wins in 2024, they're going to get attacked like you can't even believe.
Right.
You're handicapped before you even begin in this country. Even if you have the best of intentions, Donald Trump, whether you liked him or not, the media attacked him 24/7, 7 days a week, every second of his presidency, right, wrong, or indifferent. And frankly, they succeeded in doing it because they brainwashed people. Like Joe, he just gave a perfect example of his views on the LGBT community. Donald Trump was indifferent to it. If anything, he was supportive. He had a, what's his face? That gentleman, he was the ambassador to Germany.
Rick Grinnell.
If anything, I would say he was not only indifferent, he may have been like kind of on their side on many, like he didn't fight like for like say same-sex marriage, but at the same time, he didn't show any discrimination, yet he's a hater.
Right.
I mean, like the narrative that the media plays into this.
You know,
Joe,
Joe,
dangerous.
You know, Joe and I were talking before the show. We had some family up, and we were having a nice conversation. A few of us. Is that what's the best role? And then we have a couple minutes, so we'll end with this. What's the best role for Donald Trump? Now, I'm of the opinion I don't think he should run again. I think he should. I think he should take his popularity, his connections, his influence. I think he should get behind congressional candidates and Senate candidates in 2022. And I think the Republicans need to get a real America First conservative to run against probably Kamala by that time. Biden will either be dead or they will have him removed from office. So it'll probably be Kamala. Maybe not. Maybe they replace her too. We'll see. We want Donald Trump to take his influence, his connections, the money he could raise, the influence he has, the power that he has. He and Bannon and people like them need to get together in the back room, and they need to create an alternative, comprehensive alternative media structure in this country. That means social media that cannot be taken down. Okay. In other words, so different social media platforms, but those platforms are not, say, controlled by Google, who could take down the whole platform, or Apple, okay, or Amazon will have nothing to say because Amazon is the one who dropped the hammer. I wasn't on Parler, okay. My point is, if Donald Trump did that and created an outlet where people could get real information, all right, where somebody like Joe and I should have 50,000, 100,000 subscribers by now after 3 years, and we only have 3,000. Sorry, we're not complaining. We know we've been shadow banned because we don't hide what we talk about in our title. We put in there what we talk about. So we know we've been shadow banned, not taken down, but shadow banned. Okay. Our reach is not nearly what it's supposed to be. Okay. My point is that Trump should use that power he has to create that, because that, and the only reason I'm bringing it up is because what Joe just said. A free press is what's needed, and we don't have it. So an alternative press that could go up against the legacy media, okay, the establishment media, is something that we need. I think it would be important to move conversations forward so that the left can't get away with the things they get away from. I mean, what do you think?
I would agree with Joe. I think Trump and Bannon should start a media empire that would rival the left's message, get around their message. We used to have that on Twitter. They took that away. I think that would be very, very helpful as a distribution arm of information. Personally, I'd like to see DeSantis and Tim Scott run. I think they would complement each other very well. I think it would be a successful run. And frankly, between the messaging from Trump and Bannon, and you have the presidency, a strong conservative view from DeSantis, and Scott, who has, if you ask me, a good softer touch. And I think he's a very common sense, practical man. I think that would be a great ticket, and I think we'd have success in America.
That's right. And the funny thing is, and we'll end it with this, if they actually looked at Trump's positions on a lot of things, the Democrats could have worked with him on many, many things. Workers, things like that.
Infrastructure.
Right, infrastructure. And they just refused to. The fact is, Donald Trump, on a lot of things, he championed causes that the Democrats traditionally have been in favor of. But now they're owned by the Chinese Communist Party. They're owned by the globalists. They don't care. I mean, we proved that on this show just by Biden's actions in the first 100 days. Didn't care a lick about blue-collar workers on the Keystone XL pipeline, the frackers. He's all for foreign visas to take American jobs away from American workers. Joe Biden has shown his true colors when it comes to how much he cares about the American worker. Okay, so we know where the Democrats are. But it's funny, on a lot of things, they could have worked with Trump. They could have achieved a lot of things, and he had to do whatever he did on his own. Okay, thank you, Tom. Tom to win 20 Canadian. Thank you, brother. But yeah, we're gonna leave it there. Let's see what where Donald Trump's feet land. Hopefully, it lands, as Joe said, with a media company rather than running. I think, I don't want to see Trump run again. We'll see. I'll vote for him if he does, but I think we need new blood. And I think at least right now, I'm with Joe. DeSantis looks like the guy. He's articulate. He's tough. He's got the stones to get in the gutter. He's got the fight. No question about that. We love you all. We absolutely do. You show up every week. You support us. You share this video. You share our videos, our interviews, and we'd ask you to please continue to do so. Please keep us in your prayers, okay? Because that's what's keeping this show going. That's our oxygen, all right, is praying. So we really appreciate that. Remember that wherever you see this video, like, subscribe, share, do anything you can to help us. Take about 5 seconds just to get the message more out there. Veritas Catholic Network. Joe and I have done some great interviews on there, and we have a lot more in the pipeline.
Check them out. Really, some really good dynamic interviews.
Yeah.
Across the spectrum of our society, we have religious people, we have people who are professors, we have people in the media.
Bill Donahue.
Absolutely.
Bill Donahue was our very first interview where we broke down the Equality Act. It's great.
Very, very good.
So the app is available, Veritas Catholic Network. It's free, all right? And there's other shows, of course, on there. So it's a station. It's a radio. It's AM radio, but they have an app so that you could listen to their shows in podcast form, okay? So we'd ask you to do that. And Crusade Channel, all right, at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. We absolutely support my church. We absolutely support his channel. So we'd ask you to take advantage of the 30-day free trial subscription to see if you like it. And if you do, I'll tell you to subscribe. You reduced the price recently, so it's very affordable. And in the meantime, Joe, any final thoughts? Are we good?
I'll just thank you for listening, and we'll keep showing up. You guys keep showing up too. We appreciate it.
We really appreciate it. So remember, until next week, that our conversation is your conversation, and that